Good day, everybody. I am here recording my presentation that I gave at the TCU Conference. Specifically, the research that I conducted is again on the impact of gentrification in one neighborhood in Northwest Dallas in the downtown area. I know it's so hard for us to imagine what actually is Dallas because it has grown so much, but the neighborhood of Little Mexico began in 1870s. Before that, it was something else, but due to white flight, it was basically being left because all of the immigrants of Mexico were coming in. The immigrants of Mexico came in because of the Mexican Revolution, and around the 1950s, it was like affected, like it was at its peak because of the fact that the highways had been constructed. And then also a lot of homes were demolished and construction of highways was being done. And the new development caused everything to be very expensive and, pricing everybody out. And all of these people moved to Oak Cliff, Dallas, which is south, like more south of in the Dallas area. It's still technically like Dallas City, but it's the Oak Cliff neighborhood. And so there are multiple losses that happened with this gentrification. I engaged in visual analysis of past and present cultural landmarks in the area, not to mention, too, I compared the businesses that were there and the demographic of people. Specifically, the two people or the two evidences that I have is of Senor Charlie Villasana and the Todo Tortilla Factory. And then, especially, I conduct another research or another evidence of ethnography of current businesses in the newly fashioned Uptown neighborhood. And so I am making the argument that gentrification has caused physical and cultural loss for the local Mexican community in Greater Dallas, as gentrification is modern genocide. For those who don't know, gentrification, as I'm saying that it is modern genocide, is where the process where the character of poor urban areas or poor neighborhoods are changed because of the wealthier people moving in, whether that's buying a house and renovating it. And so the price of the house goes up, and that means that it affects the property taxes of the rest of the neighborhood. And then also, it could do the same thing, but for businesses. And it basically causes taxes and stuff like that to increase, and people aren't able to afford that, so they have to leave and go to a cheaper area. And so the Little Mexico neighborhood, it started in the 1870s, but it was officially established in 1910s. Oak Cliff neighborhood is south of I-30 and left of I-35, so it's basically sectioned off. Predominantly Black and Hispanic neighborhood members live there, and then even now Oak Cliff is being gentrified itself into being Bishop Arts, and we're not going to let that happen. I also forgot to put that Uptown was established in the 1970s, so keep that in mind, because that's officially when Little Mexico neighborhood got erased and from the map. The Mexican Revolution began in 1910 and ended a dictatorship in Mexico and established a constitutional republic. Just for comparison, I wanted you to see the map on the left and the map on the right. The map on the left, I have all my pieces of evidence and I can put them down in the description, but the map on the left, all the little red blocks are Mexican neighborhoods. Specifically, the one that we are talking about today is El Barrio / Little Mexico, which you can see is on the right top corner. Northwest. And then Uptown is a new neighborhood with trendy restaurants, luxury apartments, parking lots, and office buildings. And it was established in 1998. I said 1980s earlier, so I'm sorry about that, but it is 1998. So this is where I'm talking about the Oak Cliff neighborhood. For those who don't know, as you can see, Bishop Arts District is starting to erase Oak Cliff, and it's getting bigger every day, and it is really sad, and we're not going to let that happen, though. However, today we're talking about Little Mexico. Little Mexico actually was where the word Dallas is, specifically between the D and the A. That's where Little Mexico was. And all the people that was affected due to gentrification had to move south into Oak Cliff, which is all on the other side. And you can see how those two major highways divide and section people off. And so it's a very rundown neighborhood for those who had to get the affordable homes, because there are some parts of Oak Cliff that stayed the same, even though this new influx of people came in, but it was because of white flight. Oak Cliff was originally established because of white flight, and then white flight happened again to Duncanville to then leave those homes alone and to be or like to be like very low income, like affordable for people. But basically, it's a very low income neighborhood with limited resources and needs a lot more resources. And gentrification is not the way to do it. So, for context, the Dallas neighborhood, currently known as Uptown to most and Little Mexico to few, has received an overwhelming amount of popularity. It's on all the Dallas sites of places to go, places to tour, like trendy restaurants are there, new trendy restaurants, expensive clothing stores, tall office building, and this park with organized gardening. As you can see on the left of the before, that was Little Mexico, established in 1910, and then after 1998 was established Uptown. And you can see the great difference, how it is not a walkable community. There are no cultural establishments. It's a park, but there's a lot of office buildings near it, and then it's organized gardening. My purpose. However, we don't know the effects of these new businesses in the area and the new way of living in this area. The popularity of the restaurants or the new highways that take up all of DFW. The people only come to Uptown for its reputation of shopping, working in the offices, or nightlife, as it is also commonly known as the gayborhood, like the gay neighborhood. There used to be a living community that enriched Dallas with its Mexican cultures and customs in this area. The methods that I used was comparing neighborhood maps of Dallas throughout history and documentaries. We will see that Uptown hasn't always been a place for business, especially a luxury business. These old Dallas maps, history books, and documentaries show that Dallas has changed significantly. The drastic changes in Dallas layout was documented in the maps, the census maps, the news articles, which was used for this research. I know we're talking a lot about the changes in the neighborhood area of Little Mexico, downtown Dallas slash Uptown. And so I wanted to bring in a timeline, specifically the timeline so that we can see what had contributed to it in order to really evaluate the effects and to see the cause and effects of the neighborhood. So the Mexican Revolution began in 1910, which caused Mexican people to migrate to the United States. And people migrated a little earlier, like I said, in the 1870s, and Little Mexico was officially established in 1910 as well. That's when El Phoenix restaurant, the restaurant in Dallas that everybody knows and loves, in 1918 had officially opened. This is when a lot of the neighborhood cultural landmarks and the local ethnic and authentic businesses had opened. And then in 1932, Villasana grocery store opened by Charlie Villasana's dad. So Charlie Villasana is someone that is very key in this presentation. In 1956, we see major highways in Dallas that caused Little Mexico's fall. I-35 was built, and so was I-30. In 1960s, that's when the neighborhood peaked. That was probably at its prime, and it was probably not the best, because time was coming in to show the neighborhood that they were really going through a lot of stuff. In addition to the civil rights movement, there was a lot of police brutality, which gets to my next point. Of 1973, Santos Rodriguez is shot by the police. Santos Rodriguez was a 12-year-old boy who was picked up and harassed by the police and shot in his face. The decline of Little Mexico's population, like majority, happened in the 1980s when people went to Oak Cliff. And like I said, 1998 is when Uptown was officially established. But in the 1980s is when rich elite people were moving into that area. Charlie Villasana was the last person in Little Mexico, and he passed away in 2018. He was very sad, and there's more to his story, but he was very sad that Little Mexico had disappeared and that everything had changed right before his eyes. This is an official document that I found online of the Dallas Mexican Chamber of Commerce, and it's basically like the census of noting all the businesses that were of that time in the area. And you can see Rodolfo Villasana's grocery store, the Todo Tortilla Factory, the Pedro Hernandez grocery store. I believe Anectasio Reyes was a law firm. Samuel Avalos was a person. Alfonso Cortez is his funeral home, all sorts of things. So you can see this is one of the greatest things that I had to evaluate as a piece of evidence to note the before and the after of highways and Uptown, or like elitist rich people moving in. Like I said, that last piece of document that I showed on the last slide shows the different businesses that were all Mexican owned and local authentic businesses. However, Uptown doesn't have locally owned grocery stores anymore, affordable housing, cultural events, or community. Uptown is filled with expensive high-end restaurants, cafes, Starbucks, yoga studios, Sephora, Whole Foods, and the list goes on. Not to mention that it is not a walkable community. Everything is built for cars. Uptown has completely erased what was known as Little Mexico. Little Mexico was a place of community by the Mexican immigrant population from the 1870s up until 2018 when Charlie Villasana passed away in 2018 because he was the last living member of Little Mexico. Like I said, when the last living resident, Charlie Villasana, passed away. So this is part of my findings of showing the before and after pictures. The Pedro Hernandez grocery store is behind this boy that's riding a bike. That's his sign at the top of the slide. And now it is a parking lot for the Perot Museum. The Todo Tortilla factory had closed down a while ago, but it's when all the local community members worked at. And then not to mention that I believe it used to also be part restaurant. I'm not necessarily sure, but it was a tortilla factory and it was replaced by St. James Luxury Living Apartments. The apartment started at $1,600, but that statistic was back in 2020, so I'm assuming now it is probably $2,000. The Luna Tortilla factory had recently closed in 2021 and was established in 1924. Luna Tortilla factory for sure was a factory that provided businesses or provided work for the community in addition to the other businesses, and it was also part restaurant. As you can see, the original picture on the very left, where it's black and white, the most recent one, I believe this one was in 2020, the one in the middle, and now it is a trophy chest. The trophy chest is a sports bar built where the Luna Tortilla factory was. Rodolfo Villasana, or Charlie Villasana's father, had owned the grocery store named the Rodolfo Villasana grocery store. The very picture on the very, very left, where the man is in a blue shirt, that's Charlie Villasana. He grew up in the grocery store. And he had waited and struggled so hard once he took over the store and hoping that Little Mexico could come back. It was founded in 1932 and stood over 70 years. The store was shut down in 2015 to the public, and so Charlie Villasana was delivering to like local restaurants and everything, like the stuff that he had in his little store. But now it is a new location for the luxury Rolex building. Specifically, this picture is Cinco de Mayo in Little Mexico. As you can see, the community is all surrounded and they took this big, great picture. And all the little kids are celebrating. And everyone, at the time, it wasn't accustomed to smile, but again, it was a walkable community where there was culture and love and so much more. This picture is of the original El Phoenix restaurant. First, it was a cafe, and then they changed it, but this is the family that it belongs to. And again, a community that is dedicated to one itself and have authentic businesses and actual history and culture. The picture at the bottom, where it's the black and white picture, is of bailarinas de folklorico, and then the two colorful ones on the right are the new, most recent pictures of the park called Pike Park. It's the only cultural landmark of the area, and it is barely used because again, not affordable apartments or housing. There's barely any houses at all. I believe there's zero, and the very expensive buildings in that area. They have erased all our celebrations. I believe this picture is for Mexican Independence Day. I believe, again, the picture is from 1940s. I could be wrong on the year, but I know it is in the 1900s. And it's just so sad. Before Uptown, there was a culturally enriched, walkable, and charming neighborhood known as Little Mexico. The negative effects of the neighborhood revitalization is what led to Uptown. It has completely erased the cultural fabric and community ties that Little Mexico had. Revitalization of the neighborhood is gentrification in disguise. Little Mexico and its residents have been erased from Dallas, killed even because a lot of them also ended up homeless. They couldn't afford anything. And gentrification is modern genocide. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you guys liked it, and I'm actually going to post another similar video, but it's not going to be for a conference. It's actually just going to be for the YouTube channel, and hopefully next year I can submit it for the conference, but it's about Deep Ellum, the freedmen's town that's had similar experiences like Little Mexico, except It's a little bit of rewritten history and more jazz entertainment. So again, stay tuned. I really, really hope you guys enjoyed this video and ask me any questions. And all my links that I use for my proposal paper is down below. Thank you. Bye bye.